Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and the latest project that I've undertaken was trying to make Winter Orb kind of viable in 2024. That said, Winter Orb was never really not viable, it just kind of needed a slightly higher ceiling floor. Yeah, floor to take off in the current meta because other things will do probably a good bit better off of lower budgets. So this one ended up being a bit more of a budget. Well, you know, had a high budget is what we should say, because I pulled out some of the decent uh, mechanics and gear to make this thing as good as possible. And it is an occultist. It is similar to the Void Sphere build I played last league, which involves charge stacking. So we've got the Ralakesh boost, we've got the Badge of the Brotherhood, we're using the Malachai's shield with a Void battery, a +1 power charge hat, all the power charge bullshit imaginable, and then also an Oriath's End because they were one divine at the time of this video, and I'd had never used one before, and I knew that for Winter Orb to feel particularly nice, I would want something for really juicy clear. So never used an Oriath's End before, and gotta be honest, to begin with, it's pretty fucking lackluster. Like, you actually have to scale the Oriath's End well for it to do good things for you. But when you do scale them well, then it does actually become pretty reminiscent of old explosions. So it's been a cool flask to use. And for this character, I wanted to try and make sure that my flasks were going to be up all of the time. So I went with lots of flask sustain. So Tides of Time belt, a chest with 2 flask regen, and then a bunch of flask charges gained and stuff like that. And the end result, it's an okay character. It's definitely not mind blowing, but it was pretty solid. It's a cultist with 9 KES, something like 50 physical damage reduction, freezes the hell out of everything, has really good clear, and has okay single target damage. Like, it's something at its best, something like 10 million DPS for a single target with Winter Orb, and then totems additional do, I don't know, some small amount. They're nothing major, but it's just a 4-link totem setup that can do a little bit of extra pumpage when they're allowed to live. The real biggest problem is that you have to do some serious standing still to channel through your like high DPS phase, because that's basically what ended up happening to Winter Orb a long time ago. It was very meta, it was very popular, it was one of the best skills to have ever been released in the game, let's just say. And the main reason for that is because when you charged up your stacks of Winter Orb, it would just go on a blasting spree all over your screen. But to combat that sort of like autopilot screen destruction, they put more of that screen destruction into the channeling process. So while you're channeling, it fires off at a faster rate. So you have to be standing still and channeling to have your real good damage. Now, that's fine with several other skills as well. Like, it works with not lightning tendrils, because it still doesn't work very well with that because almost no one plays it, but it can work because it deals a shitload of damage and rewards you for channeling. This, on the other hand, still doesn't have the best single target while you're doing that channeling, so it is a bit of a problem. And it shoots around okay when you're blinking around and shit, and then you kind of have to spec into duration if you really want that autopilot playstyle. I didn't go for any of that. I basically just blink around and channel a little bit here or there, and it feels decent enough. I mean, this is on a pretty high-end setup though, so kind of user beware. If you're going to try and make Winter Orb work off of a lower tier setup, it might not really do as much or feel quite as good. And I've combated that in the past by incorporating Cast While Channel Ice Spear, and I didn't do it this time. This time around, I just wanted pure Winter Orb to stand on its own 2 feet and see what it can do, especially in the single target world. Previously, I'd used Ice Spear to accompany that single target, and it has always kind of saved the single target. Currently, yeah, look, it's possible for Winter Orb to do things. As you can see from a couple of things already, the single target can exist, and it can be a decent enough playstyle, especially when you build a character this thick on top of it. It's not ultra thick, you know, can't just sit here face tanking everything, but it's got a good life pool, it's got a good EHP pool, and you can definitely take a lot of hits. And then freezing is actually pretty damn insane. I haven't really had a proper freeze range defensive character this league, I don't think, and it's felt really clean. So it's an okay overall setup, and if you can get it to a similar stage, then it's pretty damn fun to play and, you know, worth doing. But it's not going to be good for everything. So I did take on some Uber bosses, and the single target really is its biggest weak point, because it doesn't just delete things like many other things are capable of on, let's say, a 50 divine budget. It takes a bit of gameplay, so I took on like Uber Eater of Worlds, Shaper. I tried Maven, but then almost immediately went, nah, I don't think this will work. So it's definitely capable of doing some of these Uber bosses, but it's not like clean Uber boss destruction. It's a lot better as a mapper. It's a lot better on the mid-tier bosses, pinnacles. Like the tier 17s I cleared were all pretty clean, and it's fairly reliable for tier 17s, I'd say. Should almost never be losing, even with some bad map mods here or there. So I don't know. I did want to mention, yeah, the highest end winter orbs I'd seen were Slayer charge stackers. So some people have taken this to a pretty high degree with like level 100 Slayers and just maximum charge stacking, which is similar enough to what I'm doing, but as an occultist. And it's, yeah, maybe just a bit less good without a mage blood, stuff like that. But it also is a weird skill in that I'm not too sure what to do with supports and projectiles. You add more projectiles and area, and it feels like it just shoots all over the place and doesn't connect many of those proj. So in the end, maybe you've noticed, I ended up using basically a single projectile and then additional proj through the Dying Sun. My Dying Sun gives 3 additional proj, and without the Dying Sun up, I only have 1 proj firing off, and that does provide a bigger, stronger freeze, which is kind of nice, but less projectiles overall for like big, large-scale clear, because I just could not really figure out what was a good ideal setup for proj, if we're using more and more area or less area, etc. So yeah, I just relegated to a single proj with Dying Sun extra proj, and when the Dying Sun is up, our DPS is pretty damn respectable and feels fairly good. Unfortunately, with this setup, I can't quite get it to be fully infinite, so the Dying Sun does go down occasionally, and that's when our DPS suffers, but it comes back up pretty quick, like it's near infinite Dying Sun, and I think all my projectiles are usually connecting because of that. This is a feared with a few decent life modifiers and attack modifiers and stuff, and it goes down without too many problems, you know. Took a few bits of damage here or there, but solid enough character for all that type of content regardless. So the closing statements, I'm only making one video here. Closing statements before I show the sort of gear and how to build the character. Oriath's End, when scaled, really good flask, to no one's surprise. When not scaled, it's kind of crappy. And then Winter Orb and Freeze can be pretty fun. I think it just takes a good amount of work to get it to where it needs to go. So let me go ahead and show you. So here is a character level 95, the Orb Within, World of Warcraft joke, and yeah, hit 95 pretty comfortably. Could easily take to 96 just through mapping, and even more if we want, just for gold farm, because it is smooth for mapping, and maybe it is my gold farm character from now on. I don't know, hard to say. Both the Cyclone Bleed, the Trickster, and also this all feel just really good to blast high tier, tier 16 juiced maps. So it is using a pretty basic setup at this point, which, you know, at this point it's basic, but it's kind of a high-end thing to put together when it's not mid-league, right? So Ralikesh, as always, just going to be OP, and it's kind of an unfortunate reality we're living in because, I mean, they're cheap and everything around it is pretty easy and cheap to put together too. And it's just, you feel so dumb when you don't use them. Like, I could either do this and have, let's say, 100% power, or not do this, and my character will probably be at around 30% of its potential through scaling methods. So it is what it is for now. GG have said this is okay, and we're going to be using Ralikesh for lots of things. But I do wish they get nerfed and or removed some way, because just every character going, okay, how do I do lots of charge stacking, feels kind of dumb. right? But for now, you know, you may as well treat it as critical strike charts. If crit is the way to scale things and it's the best way to scale things and you just do that because that's how it is, then you just do that. Currently, charge stacking relic ash, you know, pretty much the best way to do it. So in most cases, you just fucking do that, especially when it's not too bad of a, you know, investment. So the usual Void Battery, Malachai's, and also Badge of the Brotherhood. We are then using a couple of precursors I bought that were about 1 divine each. And I was mostly using them just for physical damage reduction. But then anything extra on top of that is cool. So energy shield on this one. I also went with attack block, but I didn't actually end up scaling block at all. So pretty much ignore that. It does almost nothing. And then this one just does some fizz reduction and power charge damage. So a bit of extra damage. You do get a lot of damage from this and this. So with those two sources, getting any extra damage on top of that isn't really usually super worth it unless it's a huge amount. So we do also have gloves that are just dense fossiled, I think, to give, you know, pile of ES, a chest that we used, bought fractured for, I don't know, 1 divine, I think. And then, yep, dense fossiled or like harvest spam, something like that. Yeah, these things exist these days. You can get a lot of ES thanks to these. And this one isn't even the biggest example. There's going to be 12 and 1300 ES out there, and it's pretty ridiculous. And then I think I did 1 Eldritch Chaos and got 2 resists. I was pretty lucky on that one for the suffixes. We then have a hat. These are going to be pretty hard to craft if you want max power charges. So I just woke orbed and I was just going to settle on any result basically. So woke orb with Redeemer and Warlords, and then just putting on your own ES. So this is pretty much as basic as it's going to come, but it's still somewhat hard to make because it might fill up prefixes, you might need to annul, etc. You can probably do better as well with, you know, good corrupted implicit hats. Vertex is a good one that's similar. And a lot of people use the spell block hat, the name of it loses me, with an extra power charge implicit too. But I decided not to really scale block and spell block, so didn't go that route at all. And then Tides of Time combined with the 2 extra flask charges every 3 seconds, which requires some conflict orbing, is 5 charges per second for utility, and then you scale extra flask charges gained through other means. That's why my flasks are pretty much infinite except for Dying Sun. That one does take a little bit, but you can see that it does charge up 9 or 10 charges almost every couple of seconds, and that also gets a little bit better during combat thanks to flask charge gain dealt crit recently. So my tree takes an impossible escape for this, which is like 20C, not a big deal. Just for flask nodes over here, it travels over here for flask nodes. Otherwise, pretty standard tree that just gets charges, uses a Militant Faith to do Inner Conviction, and then 1 cluster to give us a medium flask charge one for fasting and spiked concoction. Just a few ES nodes over here that I crafted myself by using defense rerolls on harvest, and then a megalomaniac that costs 1 divine, I think, that also does a bit more flask charges. So fasting, blanketed snow, and savor the moment. We are CI. We otherwise, I think, have a pretty, you know, generic tree. Nothing too crazy. Bunch of ES, aura stuff, crit. I'm a cultist, so that I have all this shit. And because I'm using Oriath's End, I don't have to do any occultist explosions or anything. We instead have Forbidden Power and an additional curse, because my build does have 3 curses: Sniper's Mark, Arcanist Brand, Elemental Weakness, and Frostbite. So chuck out your Arcanist Brand, all 3 curses go up within the second or so. Feels pretty good. We then have a totem set up with the spell totems, Power Charge and Winter Orb. Clarity for mana, we got either Frostblink of Wintry Blast, which it feels okay, but it is a little laggy because I don't have like godlike cast speed. Otherwise, I was also just mapping around with this Frostblink, because with Badge of the Brotherhood, this thing comes off cooldown almost instantly if you go into a pack of enemies, and it's an instant cast instead, so it feels pretty good. We then have Zealotry, Discipline, Enlighten, and Purity of Fire. Now, I did go pretty heavy on Fire Resist because I wanted to do Melding of the Flesh in this character, get a bunch more other resists, base all my res off of Fire, and then get, you know, triple max res. I decided it would be too hard to fit that in and just scrapped that idea, but kept a lot of the max Fire res combined with the Dying Sun. And that's why I have max fire as there. So you could otherwise use like an Arctic armor instead for when you're standing still taking less damage. That'd be pretty good. But this is the route I chose for the initial concept of the character. The other sockets here are then Winter Orb, Infused Channeling, Power Charge on crit, crit damage, Ice Bite, and Bone Chill. I'm not sure there's anything else to mention. Yep, just another Occultist. Charge stacking, Winter Orb. I think you can make it pretty good and pretty fun. Entirely if you want to or not. I don't think it's a shit skill. I don't think it should be scrapped from the meta at the moment. And I think there's some pretty big examples of Winter Orb out there. Just, you know, up to the individual if they feel like using it and making it kind of a thing. So that is Winter Orb. That is the Occultist. No other video for it because that already went all the way through endgame, tier 17s, few Ubers, and just going to farm a bit more gold on it, do some more tier 17s and stuff. Pretty good character regardless. And then move on. Maybe make Infernal Below next is kind of what I'm feeling, but we'll see where it takes us. For now, hope you guys enjoyed the video and the character. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.